has his own mentorship, now Dean of those power. You can transform. You can make people change. This power it transcends instruction. Can you change the screen? It's not merely the transfer of knowledge or the shaping of the character. Proper mentorship is built on trust, mutual respect, and a shared vision for excellence. See, when you prepare for conferences like this, you have to be mentored to be ready, because this can disappoint you. It can disappoint you. And it inspires confidence and cultivates leadership. And it helps the mentee to navigate both the rigors of medical practice and the ethical responsibilities it demands. Throughout my career, from anatomy to information technology to academia to policy, I've witnessed how mentorship can unlock doors, foster innovation, and create lasting legacy. It is no exaggeration to say that the future of medicine depends on the mentors we become today. I'll give an example. I went to a conference in New York. I think it was in 1992. During that period, many of the students that graduated at the College of Medicine came to me and asked for references. And some of the things that I wrote for them, one neuroanatomy prize that the two people have alluded to, Professor Oladapo and Professor Oladapo, was great in it. And they got their residency posted. I was just giving them good references based on mentorship. Then I got to New York, and of course, they came to me and they said, oh, when I finish, they are coming to take me. I went on Friday, I checked out of the hotel, and then they took me to one of their offices in the hotel. Then I said, oh, they said, maybe you just want to rest. I said, okay, let me just take my siesta. I woke up at about 7 p.m. into the sitting room, and there were about 43 students, who had come from New York, from Wisconsin, all over, that, oh, Nebraska is here, let's see. And they had organized a party. That is some of the things you can get. But let me tell you how it started at this medical college. What was I able to transmit to these people? These were the founders of the College of Medicine. Professor Oladapo, Thomas, Joseph, and they took with them Professor Ashiru and Professor Oladapo. They all came from Ibadan on the instigation of the Minister of Health. Let's start the medical school. And these people, they gave unique examples of mentorship. See, it has changed today completely. You have somebody, Professor Joseph, was the Vice Dean, Professor of Physiology. He was also a commissioner in Ibadan. That is, in the political situation. And he will leave Ibadan to come and give his lectures. In the University of Lagos, there was Professor Testimony Elias. He was Attorney General, he was Chief Justice, and he was Dean of Law and Professor of Law. Professor Elias, all the law students will never miss his lecture. Today, how many vice chancellors come to give lectures? They forgot it. Mentorship from Thomas. He was the dean, provost of the medical school, and CMD. He had the two positions together, and he was the chairman of the hospital. Despite this was his path. I will skip that, but I wanted to see whether there is opportunity for me, because there is one thing I got from Professor Thomas, and I want to share it with you. When he is in the center, he places one of his favorite. This is one of his classical music. It's called The Lonely Shepherd by George Lampia. So he introduced some of us to classical music, and today when I do egg retrieval and I do verbal transfer, I play classical music, and the patients come back to tell me that the baby now likes classical music. I said, yes, I did it while he was being transferred. Mentorship. Thomas was disciplined. You will never, as a medical student, you will never see him without a tag. He will tell you, are you a carpenter or a bricklayer? What are you doing in my medical school? You will never come to the world without a white coat. We were on a world ground with Professor Thomas. The governor of Lagos State, now you see governor going somewhere, there are no people there. The governor of Lagos State, Brigadier Johnson, was in the hospital on admission. And Professor Oladapo, another professor, wanted to just stop by and see the governor. And as he entered the ward, he did not know where Thomas was doing the ward now. He said, Ade, what are you doing here without a white coat? The man said, I'm coming, sir. He quickly ran for his man with the white. So that is the level of responsibility they instill on us. And as medical students, you have to have the white coat as well. So, in the words of Plato, those with knowledge must pass the torch. These people pass the torch to us. Those people pass the torch to many of us. And we have passed it to many. The likes of Professor Leslie, who is Deputy VC now. The likes of Professor Remus. We pass the torch. And it is for you, students, who are listening now and junior residents, to know that you too have a role to play in this. Those are he was the second provost of this place. He was a doyen of physiology. It was those people who called me in the hall. In those days, when students graduate, they have what they call high table dinner. And they celebrate for medical. And we were at the dinner here. We just finished our second MBBS. I had a distinction in anatomy. He called me, he said, Ashiru, come here. I want you to go and specialize in anatomy. And if you don't do it, I will not be happy. He said, because they are telling us that these foreigners coming from Britain, from India, from Pakistan, they're telling us that Nigerians cannot understand the anatomy. And you got a distinction. So you need to do what's right and prove them wrong. That was, can you see any tools, any BC getting closer to students who don't tell them like that? It is essential. And that was how I chose anatomy. Even though I had the other, but in specialty that was my interest, I would go there for the rest of time. So that was Josephus. And what Josephus said is that he was erudite, he was distinguished, he was a central elegant. He comes to class with pipes. Today you will see green pipe, tomorrow you will bring different colors. And it was just exciting us today. I cannot think of any of the students who did not have a great impression of this erudite and open thinking. Will you be able to do the same for your own students? Let me talk about Adeshola. I will just mention one for brevity. Prof Adeshola inspired us. He was an administrator. When he has his, when you are in his unit and you are having surgery, he says 7 a.m. or 7:30 a.m. What he says is that he will tell you it means S to S. That is, by 7:30, the scalpel must be on the skin. By 7:30, the scalpel must be on the skin. So anybody, resident, medical student, consultant working with him must be already scrubbed. And he will come in about maybe 7:15 and scrub. And then by 7:30, he's ready. He was busy and he inspired us a lot in that area. So as a young student, I was watching we mentored by many of these people. And the challenge and guided me towards a lot of skills. One lesson I learned is this: mentorship is not a transaction. It is a relationship. It demands time, humility, and sincere investment in the growth of others. A good mentor listens and speaks and encourages others. Does not necessarily impose. Another mentorship in action, Professor Oladapo, was a great surgeon. I showed this example so that you can see how mentorship works. I got the postgraduate, haven't been inducted to go and study anatomy. I had the postgraduate scholarship from the College of Medicine to go and study in Nebraska. Professor Oladapo, as provost, visited me in Nebraska, and he saw how the curriculum was, and that was the curriculum that would transfer to College of Medicine, where previously anatomy was being taught in 2 years and physiology and biochemistry. I think today it's now done in about 9 months. Yes. And it's done, it was done. And all the other universities have adopted it. Another mentor, Professor Pierce, he was an outstanding physician and teacher. He was a friend, he was my friend, right from my medical school posting. He has administrative crisis in preemptive management. When he was the CMD and the chairman was appointed, he has quickly said, let me go and see that chairman before the administrators. That is I'm sure Professor I didn't know we understand what I mean. Let me go there before the administrators go there and influence him. He went ahead. And he also showed that if you are in academics, you can go into private practice. And he went there And he also went into hospitality medicine, wisdom France. He became co-chancellor. So, this is some of the things that we've done, how we have evaluated our curriculum, and when that happened, to energize the students, I have to think of what do I need to do to make the students follow the studies. And that was how the Neuroanatomy Prize was started. And it energized people. And I'm so proud that many people are talking of that.
Prof Oladapo, Ashiru.
What it's all about. One of the tools you have to do is that to be a best mentor, you have to listen 70% and speak 30%. And you have to show them and watch them navigate complex process. Now in oocyte retrieval, those who work with me see me aspirating the follicles that are sometimes complex. Then I make them copy that. There are destructive barriers, and that is one of the things we have in Nigeria. We have people who don't want progress. I will summarize this by saying that sometimes in this college, when I was the editor of the Nigerian Quarterly Journal, somebody is associate professor or senior lecturer looking for promotion. He writes a manuscript, and I said, okay, I look at it. This manuscript is in surgery. So I will send it to the surgeon professor in his specialty, in his unit. I will send one manuscript there. I will send the second manuscript to another person in Ibadan or in Ife. And you have to have, then the third one will be in Amon. And there must be 2 positive and 1 negative. Sometimes, now, you cannot believe this. The report from Ibadan will come. The report from Amon will come. Maybe the Ibadan is strongly positive, Amon is in between. Then I'm looking for one strongly, another one to balance that, so that manuscript can be accepted. The one in Lagos here, in our doorstep, has not come. And I cannot tell the author that your paper is being delayed from your village. That is what is doing a lot of destructive process. And then we have to wait and have to write a reminder for that thing to come. So that is the pull down syndrome. And it happens a lot in this environment. And we must need to foster that culture of mentorship so that we promote ourselves and we do so much to help our people. Because I know that, for example, I gave an example here, let me just, where people will tell you that they have no time. Oh, I'm very busy. But you should choose even 15 minutes to look at that manuscript or to mentor for that person. And you can do voice notes when things are not so good. We believe that you can tie mentorship to promotion, and you can do more in terms of research collaboration. The next thing you can do, you should try and tie mentorship to many things. Sometimes you you can adopt the hospital corridor. You can give a lot of ideas to your residents as you are going on in your work round. One of the professors here who has now become he's a professor of anatomy. He did all his research in anatomy, but he has become a professor of history for university. He's a professor of when he was in the corridors, I used to tell him the history of the college. So when the last time I said, so you're now a historian. He said, it's from you that I learned this. I said, so you have to do all this, and people will embed different things from you. Mentorship is ultimately about preparing the next generation to lead. And you have to identify them from students to faculty to do different aspects of that mentorship. And make sure you cultivate the policy for the next leadership of tomorrow. I remember when Professor Adeshola, because they are, these disruptions are very heavy, and we have to look at it. Currently, there is one doctor in a private practice. He has an ultrasound to scan patients. The scanner is in his office. Anybody that works with him cannot use that scanner when he's not around. He just allows them to use the scanner. Whereas, in our own center, we have several scanners for people, even nurses, to scan and train. You see, they say a professor is not known by what he professes, but by how many professors they are able to mentor. And sometimes what you don't know, you can't give. I was lucky, and I will explain that with you in my question. Because if you don't give, one professor was retiring in the University from California, Professor Oladapo was retiring, and what happened was that 40 of his professor students wrote chapters for a book to celebrate his retirement. Can you imagine? Whereas in a department here in anesthesia, there was a professor, and then the next person to that professor was the lecturer one. The professor wanted to be head of department, year in after year, head of department. I was already a professor at that time. And then she would, and then Professor Adeshola to say, this one-man show will not stand. Let the lecturer one become coordinator. The woman, the person was surprised and was disappointed. Of course, by the time she became coordinator, within a year, she became senior lecturer. That you don't have to keep somebody down in order to be head of the department. No. This was my own story. This was how I was mentored in the US. We were working on a research that was a breakthrough research, and it got me beyond the field of anatomy into cellular embryology, where we handled the process of FSH positive feedback, which is now has helped the process of in vitro fertilization, fertility care to be better, because a woman will produce one egg in one cycle. But through this research, we can make a woman produce 10, 12, 15 eggs. So you have enough to work on. And when I came back to Lagos, one thing that many people do again is that when they go for postgraduate, as soon as they get their PhD, they come back. And it is difficult when you have your PhD to start the research unless you have done postgraduate, postdoctoral training, which is the ability to now initiate research. If you do PhD, you have just done your research, which you are being supervised. but you don't know how to now troubleshoot and think and innovative. And that was what happened there. So I was able to initiate postgraduate training. I got a grant, even though Rockefeller Foundation that gave me a grant said that they want to give me a grant for family planning in the male to do male contraception. So I said male contraception. I want to do IVF. The man who I know, Professor Dr. Sigal, if you do IVF grant, they will not give you for Africa because your population. So, of course, the male contraceptive work grant allowed me to also do IVF. So, Dada was working with me, Ojefu and Abisoku. Those were the first people. And they are now, those ones have jumped back to America. Dada has a private practice in America. Ojefu works in Washington. Abisoku has also a luxurious IVF. Professor Adekoke, Okwala Oremusu Akibo is that was my first physiotherapy graduate, and so many of them. And then we set up IVF program. So this is how it has moved. So what is the description I have for you? Make sure you look at the quiet student that has skills. He is good or is shy. Look for the resident who is knowledgeable but disorganized. Of all these people I have mentioned to you, if I tell you what I have to do, for some of them, I will call them and say, X, if you don't do this thing, I'm not going to be satisfied. Sometimes I call the girlfriend and say, look at what your boyfriend is doing. It's not my degree, but I'm trying to. And now everybody's happy. And then look for the unconventional thinker that you need to help to innovate. We've done that in this field of assisted reproductive technology, and we have been able to help to, you can see the landmark. These are the people who work in this area, and Ashiru Place 78 was one of the significant contributions. These people, they have got Nobel Prize in medicine for their work in assisted reproductive technology. Dilman, Shari, and Gallo. And then it was then used by Stetson and Edward to produce the first set baby in the world. That is Miss Brown. And Patrick Stetson died. Ali was given Nobel Prize in 2010 in physiology or medicine. And then you could see how with that news, everything broke out. Sometimes in mentorship, in your skill, people discourage you. You cannot believe this. It was when you are started that saying this a lot, but I have moved beyond that. When we did this IVF in this college, it was in this one that we presented the paper. As consultant, they wrote to the medical council that you were advertising, that you were saying things that cannot be done in Nigeria, only things done by the white people. It was written in black and white, and they told us the people who were trying to answer to the discipline. And then the Guardian said, if the Nigerian has gone to the moon, you have to celebrate them. But those are the things we face. When Stetson and Edward had their first idea, it was an ectopic pregnancy. People abused them, vilified them. In the process, America banned IVF research. That is why America was behind all of them. Australia came to IVF in 1980. America got there in 1982. So 2 years after. And with the Rockefeller Foundation, which I told you about, myself got the success in Iraq, and then I invited Osaso Duwasaki, and we did the human. And that was now the the party said to, inviting us to join the IBF club. I showed this. This is Louis Brown, who was born in 1978, the president today. She wrote a book to show that she too, this was in Baltimore, she's normal, and she has her own baby. In fact, she has 2 babies now. And you can see here, that was the test tube in which she was conceived. It was given to her by Robert Edwards. Now you can see how we have advanced now. Haven't brought this to Nigeria and haven't been able to replicate this process here in Nigeria. You can see here, let me just show you. This is the kind of identification we have for the eggs and fertilization. And you can see here how the inverted microscope is used to fertilize sperm for males with very low sperm that will not have been able to produce a baby on their own. We're able to inject the sperm into them. And as I said, mentorship is not to do it alone. You must transfer that knowledge to others. And you can see here that we have now been able to improve on this. This is now the state of the art of this machine. And we have people who have been doing it. And you can now move forward to that and see that not only that, recognizing that there is need for that manpower in this country. For almost, see, the destruction, I will say this, for almost since 2018, I've been trying to develop an institute to train clinical embryologists. Today in Nigeria, there are 250 IVF clinics. How many embryologists do you have? There are under 50. So they go from one clinic to the other. Each clinic by the US and the IFFS should have at least 2 to 3 embryologists because there must be witnessing. So you see one embryologist going on from one place to the other. And we've been trying to develop a program to train them in collaboration with the Department of Labor. That paper for many years was kept somewhere in the medical council, was carried off as one of the former presidents would say. It was revised. Now we're just beginning, maybe, hopefully, the master's program will be started this October. I had to write a text to the vice chancellor. I'm a bit surprised that this thing is taking long. We need this manpower in this country. There are people ready to fund it, and they call it, what do you call it? Professor Duncan, A&P, something TAP. So I said, when I started postgraduate training in this college, within 3 months, I put it to a book, and the thing was started. Why are we now doing 6 years to approve a program for masters? What? A specific bottleneck. In the absence of that, I started doing this program at a center, at medical center. We have an institute for that, and we have produced 7 graduates. I told them, I said, we have produced 7 graduates, about 7 students at a time, 7 courses. And each one of them pays 1 million naira to come and train. Because when they finish, they get good salaries. We have gone into PPT and we have succeeded. And so my own advice is that there's a role for faculties, for academic leaders to help to do this. The last slide shows how we have been able to help couples who are sickle cell carriers to have normal babies, pre-plantation genetic testing, and how those babies can now get their HLA to get their own offering with sickle cell to be healed. So we must celebrate those who are successful and praise them and do whatever we have. So I always like to do that. These are the people who have been mentored through me and are successful. You know the provost. Prof Oladapo was former deputy provost. Ashiru was former deputy provost. Dugu is head of anatomy. Ashiru is dean of postgraduate college. And I will tell you something. Each one of them have taken different qualities from who mentored them. You can see, I said, Okona was my historian. But also has his decorum. He dresses very well. Ashiru is dynamic, very active, and Dugu is progressive, Ashiru in leadership. So that is the way it goes. And launch mentorship program, please. Where mentees give solutions to hospital problems. Do so. That is what insurance should do. And a call to action. Let us all collectively commit to building a future where mentorship is not an exception, but a culture deeply rooted in every department. It has to be every discipline and every generation. We have to do so. That is how we can replace and retain staff in our institutions. And to the faculty, your stethoscope builds patience. Your mentorship builds healthcare system. Identify one diamond in the rough this semester. That is, look for somebody that needs that process to move on. Look beyond the topic. Don't just mention the already outspoken. Look for those who are just already, who are passive, and inspire them to see their hidden potential and commit to polishing it. That is what mentorship is all about. There are people, I will tell you for example, there are people when they come into my program, I have to get them what they call tapes on linguistics, how to change their intonation so that they don't speak English with the dialect and so on and so on. So this is part of mentorship. So, to faculty, researchers, and clinicians and visitors, I urge you, make mentorship a professional priority. It says you build structures that support it and recognize it and reward those who do it well. Seek mentors like a diagnostic. So to students and young professionals, seek mentors actively and remain teachable. Invite them and prepare to them, and you become part of them as a family. Most of the people that I've mentored, they are like my family. When I'm doing things, they're there. And prepare yourself also to one day guide others. That is important. In our own field, this is the field of reproductive endocrinology. We celebrate every embryo successfully implanted. But most important, transfer is not biological. It is the passing of blood to the next generation. This catheter you see here delivers life. We use this catheter. Very interesting that you see this. To load embryos into this catheter on the microscope, and we insert it into the uterus and we inject it. And 12 days after, we test the blood of the patient. The patient is positive. Pregnant, and 9 months the baby is born. So that is what you do. But the catheter delivers life, but our mentorship delivers future. The question is, whose future will you carry next? That is what is important. And I close this with the covenant. An elder cannot be in the market and watch his child stray, as they say in Yoruba language. Will you be the elder in the marketplace of medicine? Let mentors like lives depend on it, because they do. I conclude in the words of the 17th century composer Beethoven, who says, I recognize no superiority in mankind other than goodness. It is my belief that if we all try to take goodness as the most superior quality we can emulate, this world will be better place. Thank you.